Absolutely. Sir, thank you very much for that. And of course, the Democratic Alliance and those some 2,000 delegates you mentioned, Thabo, are meeting here in Midrand to elect their new leaders that they are hoping will take the party to the 2024 general election. So far, we've heard about the failures of the African National Congress and how the Democratic Alliance hopes to correct some of those. We're also hearing how speaker after speaker speaking about the fact that they're hot on the heels of the ANC and that they want to be that credible alternative. So what do they bring to the table? Well, we are joined this afternoon by Francois Rodgers. He is the leader of the Democratic Alliance in Kwa-Zulu Natal. Francois, thank you very much for your time. We understand you are meeting for the first time since the advent of COVID-19. So the last Congress was virtual. How would you capture the spirit among delegates today?
Good afternoon, Dudu, and thank you very much, and good afternoon to your viewers. I think you can feel the energy, you can feel the vibe, and I think it's all about hope, and it's about change, and it's about bringing together, creating a better South Africa. So it's really great that we're back and we can engage face to face, and I think the energy is there.
Creating a better South Africa. In fact, it was Solim Simanga, the Gauteng DA leader, who says he's seized with that question on a daily basis in terms of what a better South Africa would look like. What does that look like for you?
Well, I think a better South Africa is where every single individual in our country is treated as an equal and has equal opportunities when it comes to jobs, when it comes to creating an opportunity, creating small business, and more so access to equal education, access to equal and competent health care, and of course our municipalities, our failing infrastructure and the disgraceful level of service that we get out of the ANC-led municipalities.
In fact, as we speak, I think we are being load shed, and there I hear the announcements. I'm not quite sure which stage of load shedding we're at this afternoon, but do bear with us. Okay, there you can hear the roaring sounds of delegates celebrating the fact that the lights are back on. Francois, we've mainly heard about the failures of the African National Congress, but what is it that the DA is bringing to the table, which is something, outside of Chris Papas, the mayor of Umgeni, he's actually brought a report card to say this is what we found the situation like, this is what we did, and this is what we plan to do in the future. So far it's about the failures of the governing party, but nothing about the Democratic Alliance.
Well, I think, Dudu, if you look at areas that we govern, if you look at the cities that we govern, if you look at the Western Cape where we govern, we're not perfect. We've always admitted that. We don't always get it right. But we're a damn sight better than what we're getting in those provinces that are run by the ANC, and particularly in my province. So I think the DA comes with experience. It comes with the skills and creating a capable and ethical state that can actually bring about the fundamental change that this country so badly needs.
A capable and ethical state, like you mentioned, you're not perfect. You see what happened in the city of Tshwane with the former mayor. That doesn't paint a good picture. We saw the raids just the other day by Hawks officials in the Western Cape, one of the party's officials. What do you say to those who say, well, the Democratic Alliance, one, does not take responsibility, but when you are found to be wanting, then you distance yourselves from those members, but not in a sense of accountability, but to say, well, we didn't know about this. Surely they are your members. The buck has to stop somewhere.
Well, I think the fundamental difference between us and any other political organization is that when situations, as you've just highlighted, arise, we deal with it. We deal with it decisively. We don't drag our feet. We don't suspend members indefinitely. And we make sure that there's consequence and accountability. And I think we've proven that clearly, particularly in my province, of course, Kwa-Zulu Natal, where we've had errant councillors who've committed various contraventions, and we deal with it, and we deal with it decisively. I think that's the difference.
Francois, I just want to go a couple of steps back, and maybe you can remind our viewers when you joined the Democratic Alliance and why. What was the appeal for you?
Well, I come way back. I was part of the DP and then moved to the Democratic Alliance, and I'm a Kokstad resident. And I got into politics because I felt I could make a difference to the community, and I started as a councillor. And obviously I've worked my way up. That was pre-1994, pre-democracy. I was a councillor, and I've just felt that I need to serve society at large.
How is that going? You mentioned being there pre-1994. The things that you saw before 1994, how far have we gone in addressing them and making a better life for all?
Well, again, I can only speak from Kwa-Zulu Natal, and it's not a good story to tell. In fact, I was talking to one of the delegates who grew up in Pietermaritzburg, where I grew up. I schooled in Pietermaritzburg. And if you just drive around the city, nothing works. Nothing works. Verges aren't cut. Sewages spilling out into the street. There are continual water outages. There are continual power outages. The state of the roads has collapsed. There is nothing good to tell. And I could spend another 10 minutes on eThekwini.
Let's not go into that, but you speak to some pundits and they'll tell you, well, this is all politicking, right? Because fundamentally the system in South Africa is wrong, whether it's the voting system, etc., where we need to bring the power back to people on the ground, which is one of the constitutional amendments that you have here.
Yeah, look, I think it's critically important that we need to get people to register. There's this apathy in our country, and I think it's an apathy created by poor service delivery and political parties putting out a whole plethora of promises and not delivering on it. But again, I come back to an example you spoke about earlier, a guy like Chris Pappas and the DA there. And if you look what they've achieved in a very, very short space of time, that's why I always talk about capable and ethical state and serving the needs of the people, which is exactly what we've done in Mngani.
Chris Pappas is a good example, but she's also got areas of Kwa-Zulu Natal that are hard-pressed, especially in terms of people getting housing infrastructure, for instance. And so in 2024, the message coming out of this Congress today is that whomever is chosen here to be the leader is potentially going to be the leader of the Republic of South Africa. And so in terms of areas of importance, which ones have you identified so that it's not a system of still doing an audit process, but you hit the ground running in terms of what people need?
Look, I think the most important thing is if you look at the DA and you look at the possibilities of 2024, and we all know that there's a strong possibility that in the province of Kwa-Zulu Natal that the ANC could fall well below 50%. Some of the pundits are putting KZN as low as 36% for the ANC. So that creates an opportunity for us to step up, to step to the fore, and to start making changes. It's not going to happen overnight because the province and the state of Kwa-Zulu Natal has been hollowed out.
You've got people to date who have been impacted by the floods are living in community halls. So you've got people that are quite desperate for their lives to change materially. You've got people that are unemployed. What should those people understand about the economic policies of the Democratic Alliance?
Well, let me go back to a capable state and what you're talking about, housing and flood victims. And I serve on the finance committee in the province of Kwa-Zulu Natal. And one of the biggest problems is we get enormous sums of money from National Treasury. But departments that are supposed to implement housing, human settlements, allocations, conditional grant allocations to municipalities, they don't spend that money. That money then ends up being returned to National Treasury. And people must understand that. People must start taking an interest in what's happening, particularly in finance. Because there is money available, but it's never spent effectively and efficiently, and in some cases not spent at all.
Accountability is a big issue as well. We know that we are plagued by a number of problems in the country. What is the plan with the Democratic Alliance? If you are saying the message coming out of here that you could very well govern the country in 2024, in terms of giving South Africans the assurance that, okay, a different person is in power, but how do I trust that you will also not get your fingers into the cookie jar?
Well, again, voters have got a 5-year period. So you lend your vote to any political party. And we've always had the belief that you lend us your vote for 5 years. And if we cannot prove what we say, then you can change that vote. And that's the mindset that voters need to get themselves into. You don't have to continually over and over vote for the same party and expect a different outcome.
In fact, some people may very well argue that 5 years is way too long, especially given the trajectory of the country. Perhaps let's come back into the conference. Currently, the program is dealing with constitutional amendments, some 80 of those. There is a proposal that perhaps the party needs to go into a policy conference. You don't work like other political parties. You do not have a policy conference some 6 months before you get into Congress. For instance, to even sensitize people, these some over 2,000 delegates who are here, of the party's policies that they're then able to bring to the everyday South African. Is this a motion that you would support?
Absolutely, but it's also a process that we have started. In fact, at a federal level, the Federal Executive, which I serve on, and Federal Council, we have started to engage and discuss policies. It's obviously got to be taken a stage further, and the whole party must start engaging in that. So it's a process we're undertaking, and it'll be a transparent and open, and allowing everybody to contribute to make sure that we put policies in place that in fact can bring about the changes. And then ultimately, it's implementing those policies. That's the big difference. And we see some of the ANC policies that just are not implemented.
Yeah, and that's just it, right? So it's all about the implementation. The Democratic Alliance has not been a governing party in South Africa. Throughout the course of the morning, we've been speaking to some of the delegates that mentioned, well, we're doing quite well in the Western Cape, but there are some other areas where you are at. You may not enjoy an outright majority. However, what is it that is preventing the party from doing what it is doing in the Western Cape, in other provinces?
Well, that's the voters' choice. Ultimately, we can only do what we can do if we get the support base from the voters. So, our target is 2024, and Kwa-Zulu Natal is a key area for us. And as you know, we're in talks with the IFP. We're courting each other and trying to understand how each other operates. Because again, we don't want to get sucked into some sort of cooperation coalition where we just become the listeners and we then have to suck up what's given to us. So that's a process we're undertaking, and I think that's exciting. We've done it in various of the municipalities where we're in cooperation with the IFP, and I think that bodes well for Kwa-Zulu Natal.
Speaking of that, let's perhaps do a little bit of scenario planning, if you will. Come 2024, no one enjoys an outright majority in terms of political parties in South Africa, and there's coalition governance. Which parties are you looking at, or are there parties the Democratic Alliance has identified that they definitely will go into bed with? You've made it known that you don't want anything to do with the ANC or the EFF. So come 2024, you don't enjoy an outright majority. Who else?
Well, in the province of Kwa-Zulu Natal, that would be the IFP, which is why in various municipalities, Newcastle, Abaqolosi, Richards Bay, where we've gone into cooperation. We didn't go into a coalition, into cooperation, because in that way we can remain opposition, we can remain critical, and at the same time we can try and build a relationship with the IFP. And we have various monthly bilateral meetings with the IFP to try and strengthen that understanding of 2024 and beyond.
On the 1st of April, actually, in 2022, your vote is your voice. Is it clear to you who you're voting for? Are you able to share it with us? Especially in terms of party president.
You say 1st of April now. That's April Fool's Day. So.
This is no April Fool's joke. We want to know, Francois. We want to know.
Clearly, if you're talking about the Congress,
yes,
I'm happy to support. You can see I'm supporting John. And I'm supporting John because I think he's got the skill, he's got the ability. We've gone through these coalitions. It's been very tricky. I think John's got his hand on the tiller, and I think John is the person that can take us into 2024. And he's shown his leadership ability, particularly in our province where we had riots, we had floods, and John was on the ground with me. He's a leader that's on the ground when other leaders are just missing in action.
You're right, I'm stuck in a time warp. It's not 2022, it's 2023.
So I wondered if it was an April Fool's joke.
Thank you very much for your indulgence this afternoon. He's the leader of the Democratic Alliance in Kwa-Zulu Natal. Plenty still to come for you. Do stay with Newzroom Afrika.